Shane, thanks for joining the Liberty Ventures podcast today. And I got to say, I love the background there, but you said it's not virtual. That is your actual background right now, right?
Yes, sir. You got it. So this is, as you're seeing here, the first indoor hydroponic coffee, well, only indoor hydroponic coffee farm in the United States. So that is not fake. That is 100% real coffee trees you see in the background who we recently just harvested and they're getting ready to go into bloom.
That's amazing. How big is the space, and why are you doing a hydroponic farm, unlike what most everyone else does?
Yeah, well, oof, that's a little longer than probably what we have, but so this space is probably about 3,000 square foot. This is our display farm, or kind of like our R&D farm. The idea here, this is actually inside a community college locally in our community. So we partnered originally in an incubator program for a business, and we developed this farm and put it in place. To kind of short version of answering your question about why hydroponic coffee. So I will tell you that prior to us starting this, we did not realize the dynamic of the future of coffee farming. It was really just a unique value prop to create something different in the market because I always hated the gimmick of coffee. You go in and you see a Colombian grade coffee that probably comes from the same 4 or 5 Colombian farms with different labels on it. And each year, some retailers pushing out the same product with a different label, the same product with a different label and a different gimmick and a different sales pitch. And I didn't really care for that much. And I thought, what would be interesting is how can we find a way to make coffee American grown all the way through? Of course, your biggest factor being climate, right? But with the innovation and technology that we have today and the way that hydroponics and indoor farming or controlled environmental agriculture has changed, there might be a way to do it. So that's kind of a part of our story is we went all in and spent all of my daughter and I, our savings. We dumped it into testing. The idea failed a lot, spent a lot of money, lost just about everything. And then we somewhat cracked the code and we were able to grow and harvest coffee. We still have a lot of stages to get through, but we really wanted to be able to control supply chain. We wanted a true American grown product that people can enjoy, considering that it's the second most strength product in the United States. It seemed like something to target. And then the funny thing is as we've been working on it 5 or 6 years, all of a sudden coffee shoots up the highest it's been in 13 years. There's some supply chain issues, climate control issues. So, as they say in business, I don't 30 something years to an overnight success in that sense. So we finally got to the point to where we were able to harvest coffee, still working on different things to make it better, different varieties or so on and so forth. But this is where we are now.
Well, congratulations on getting to harvesting. How long did it take you to get there? How long does it actually take to grow from
So
scratch?
that, yeah, so traditionally in a coffee, depending on the variety, there are different varieties that move faster, but the variety you see back here can take about 4 to 5 years for its first yield. So meaning that the second that you put the seed in the ground to when you can pull the seed off the tree, you're probably looking at about 4 to 5 years. And again, there's a lot of factors into that. It depends on the climate, depends on the tree, where the trees came from, and the variety of the tree. With hydroponics, the pluses to it is we see 50% faster growth and 30% more yield because we can control all those factors. So anything that might be a potential threat to something you're growing in hydroponics in the traditional farming, we can minimize that collateral damage and hopefully maximize the tree. Just like anything else, if you take care of yourself all day, every day, and you're not out, you're not stressed and you're working out and you're exercising, obviously your body's going to respond. Trees work and plants work the same way. They see the same love and care, same conversations, same positive outlook, all those factors. And then, of course, we see the benefits of that. We can control the lighting and the temperature and maximize all the benefits of what would make a coffee tree grow.
And you mentioned that you wanted to have an American grown product here. I know there are coffee farms in Puerto Rico, but are there farms anywhere else in the US or especially like the contiguous 48 states?
Yeah, I mean, I think California, Southern California, California has some farms. I think when we say that, I think in the sense of hydroponics more importantly. So yes, we were just, I think Yahoo Finance put us as one of the top 5 coffee farmers in the United States, but we are the only indoor farmers. I think again, when you have different climates, Puerto Rico, California, that's all indicative to a lot of factors like water, right? So the climate may be appropriate, but California has a lot of challenges with water. So the coffee may not thrive, and it depends on the varieties. Remember, in controlled environment, we can grow any kind of variety, whereas based on where those grow zones are, they can only grow a certain variety that can actually be able to support the grow zone and the climate. So an example would be like let's say a geisha coffee that would grow in a higher elevation. You wouldn't be able to do that because maybe California, Southern California doesn't have the same elevation. Whereas we can actually change the room to create a higher elevation in order for the tree to grow. We can push CO2 to the trees to allow them to be able to grow faster and make a better process of it. So again, a lot of factors that we can grow. We can grow Kona, I mean Hawaii coffee. So we could grow Kona. It just takes a long time to grow Kona. But if we wanted to, we could actually do that and be able to grow.
So, a lot of questions I want to ask all around this, but what's your vision for where you're taking Biggins Coffee? Why, like, where do you want to see this in 5 and 10 years?
Yeah, so normally this is where my daughter responds. She's not here today, but this is her company. So she started this when she was 6. She's now 10, and she always answers those questions. So for the sake of her not being here, the vision we see is not necessarily being the coffee company. We see us as coffee farmers. We see us as an innovative farming program that starts to develop indoor farms across the United States where the customer can get the true experience of farm to cup. Also, our bigger vision is to create a sustainable economic development in rural communities where we have the ability to be able to put in these really cool, farms that allow such a huge market share for a local farmer to be able to generate revenue and enjoy their land versus having to sell it off or, going broke because maybe a hurricane comes through and it wipes out everything. We're hoping that this can do is to create just maybe an additional cash flow stream or passive income for the farmer. From traditional farming, it's kill it, eat it, right? Literally. So they got to grow it, they got to put it together, they got to eat it, and they don't have a lot of diversification when it comes to their overall platform to sustain, to be able to support their family and their business and their land, which is something they want to hold on to, which is something I fought for, and many veterans have fought and died for. And I think that's where it resonates with us is if we can crack the code on this, think of this as like the Chick-fil-A of coffee. We have the opportunity to be able to build these farms in multiple places, allow that foundation to set and sit. And if a farmer wants to create an awesome agritourism business where you've got a cafe inside your farm, you've got a roasting facility, and then we want to tie that supply chain to big box retails. So that way, if they're going to buy and they're going to spend the money, they might as well spend it with a local farmer and be able to go and pick up. We should save tons of cost, a lot of opportunities because the distribution channels are obviously going to be a lot better. If you have a warehouse there versus trying to bring it all in from South America, go through the import. And coffee, that's all about that timing of flavor, right? So think about the time you grab the bag off the shelves, how long it's taken from that bean to get from the tree from Africa, South America, wherever it's at, all the way for you to finally brew that cup. That's a long time considering that it's freshness is a big part of it.
So, first off, I obviously want to say thank you for your service, and I'm going to dig into your experience in the military in a minute. But to put a finer point on this, so this is really a model that you want to offer up to other farmers or other people to have their own hydroponics coffee production facilities.
Yeah, you got it. So that's pretty much the 10-year vision is to develop farms. We actually have our first farmer in Kentucky that's a veteran that's getting ready to start the program. And it'll be a co-op program. So the idea is that we would basically come in, we would find partners, obviously, to raise capital, venture capital, however we do it. We would go and set up the foundation of this farm, put it in place. We would consult, set up, make sure they're good to go. And then the great thing about hydroponics is kind of set it, forget it. So once you put it in and put it in place, you crack the code. It's really about having the opportunity to go in and just manage the trees, manage the systems, everything's good. We would come in and help with the harvest. We take the harvest and then give a crop share to the farmer, and then we would take it and go out and make sure it gets sold to the market.
Now, about how expensive is it to set up one of those facilities? I would imagine that it's a pretty significant upfront cost for someone to opt into doing this.
Yeah, I mean, it's got again, depending on a lot of things, you've got a pretty substantial capex in the beginning, and then your opex is pretty high when it comes to utilities. I mean, the rate of return is pretty substantial though, because though you might have pretty heavy on the upfront, really the upfront cost is going to be your lighting. But nowadays, this is probably why it hasn't existed, and we're kind of the first and only ones. The cost of lighting was so expensive. But now we're starting to see with LED lights that price is driving down a lot more. There's a lot of subsidies to that. There's a lot of government subsidies that'll help with the rebates, and we'll be able to offset that. But the return is massive because a coffee tree has probably a 20-year lifespan of production. So when you think about the consistency of that and controlling the entire commodities market of coffee on the state side, because we control price and drive. We also offer a product that's next to none, so there's a lot of marketability to that. So our price can be substantially higher because we're offering a cleaner, better product to consumer. There's multi-facets of business models or verticals that can run on it. So you're not just talking about just the harvest of the trees, but agritourism for you pick harvest. I mean, imagine being able to have a community can come in and pick your own coffee and play a part in that, just like you would a blueberry farm or a tomato farm. Something that people could be involved in. And then that traditional cafe, right? So you come in and you sit down in a cafe setting. You got the trees in the background. You got the experience. A lot of times we have canaries that we put up or birds that'll sing in the background. So it creates a kind of an ambiance, almost as if you're in the farm in South America. And that allows the price point again to be a little higher and to make it a little bit better. So, but traditionally on a pretty successful farm, assuming we have a 5 or 10 year contract, and again, we are in beta testing a lot of this, we see probably about 250,000 as an upfront investment, and that'll secure a 10-year contract that should have your first 3 years, your returns made back, and then you're netting hopefully somewhere between 250 to $500,000 on autopilot, right? So remember, this isn't labor intensive. So we're also working. Our goal is to work with other veteran programs, DoD Skill Bridge, so that we can have veterans and disabled veterans coming in and working and playing a part where there's again subsidies for labor. But once these farms are kind of running, it's not super labor intensive. It's really just kind of going around and making sure everything's good to go and monitoring. And again, we consult on a lot of that. So we want to set it up for success. I mean, again, these will never compete with the coffee farms because we're not coffee farms. We could never be the coffee industry. We are just a different model that allows the consumer an option to be able to pick something that may be a little bit better to support a community that probably needs it.
Now, do the people who open these up need to have farming background, or is this something that you're training really anyone who wants to get into this to be able to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually, so we work with Appalachian State University on a program called Frontline to Farm. And what we're starting to do is we're starting to implement a system both for veteran farmers, military veterans, as well as anybody else that wants to get into the coffee farming industry. And we're setting up that curriculum, hopefully in the future, to be able to plan through and train and go through that process. So again, just think of it like the Chick-fil-A, of coffee. If you want to build a farm, you want to invest in the farm, you want to grow it, great. Then we come in, we offer all the training, the consulting, we tee it up, program it, and then hopefully our goal is to go and sell a contract for your distributor. So again, let's give Walmart as an example. If you had a Walmart, let's say 10 miles down the road, and we were able to partner with Walmart in that conversation, then we would connect that contract from that store to buy the product to be able to directly support. So we want it maybe within like a 500-mile radius, and that can go anywhere from roasters to local cafes, to pretty much anybody. The idea is to always have that farm, like a future, sold already for them, so that way they can feel a little more secure that the income's going to come.
Amazing. Now, you mentioned you're a veteran yourself, and again, thank you for your service, and you want to work with other veterans here. I'm curious what impact your time in the service had on you developing this and your approach to leading in business and what you're doing now.
Oh boy. Yeah, it's a great question. So I don't, I guess the military doesn't really define me. It was a chapter of my life that laid a foundation for a lot of the future things to where I am now. It's not the only key factor to say, well, I was a Marine, so it's everything and all day of every what I do. I'm not one of those kind of Marines in that sense. Not that it makes it good or bad. It's just that I've been surrounded by so many different personalities and people of levels of success. As a motivational speaker and executive leadership coach, I've had the fortunate opportunity to sit around probably more billionaires than most, more millionaires than most. I was in the mortgage finance industry for 20 years, so I understand at least the nuances of money, the goods and the bads, risk level. So I did learn a lot from that, and it played a part. I think if I had to take anything from my military career that I would use in the day to day to get where we are today is really just I say Marine Corps because I can't speak for the other branches, but the tenacity to just never quit. I was watching an article or a podcast the other day, and it was talking about entrepreneurship and the defining moment of what makes someone successful versus someone not successful, and it really is just that decision of deciding to go through it. It's really tough, whereas others go off to another shiny object or decide to veer off path. You got to be committed to your trade. Now, fortunately for me, in this business, it's tied to my daughter, so it makes it really, really easy. So I don't want to veer off because this is our story, this is our scrapbook, this is our future. So I will say, out of all the other things, when it was probably a little more me, I wasn't as committed as I am to this. So I know that I've got nothing else. She's my only daughter, so I'm a single dad. So, my only goal in life is to continue to build this to hopefully give her a future that allows her options to decide what she really wants to.
So, did she come up with this idea, or did the two of you develop it together, or how did that happen?
No, this was 100% her. I did not come up with this at all. So I honestly, I probably drank energy drinks more than I did coffee. Not that I didn't like it. I just wasn't as into it. And I ran across America a couple of different times. I did a bunch of world records. As a speaker and stuff, I did a lot of things to kind of raise awareness. I was kind of like a corporate social responsibility platform for companies. So if they wanted to help homeless veterans or they wanted to do something, then I was kind of that marketing idea where I was like, listen, I'll run across America. I'll sleep in homeless shelters. We'll give money. We'll help out. We'll do things. I was homeless for a couple of years. So, I know the challenges of what can happen with that. So as I kind of went through that program and that experience, I started to realize that it's hard to fix something when it's on the end. You've got to kind of start back at the beginning. And I'd written this book called Done by 230, and it was teaching executive leaders on how to effectively build and coach themselves to be done with all of their goals by 230. And I did that because your kids get out of school by 2:30. And what I found is that we were so focused on developing a business around a random stranger that we didn't focus on building a business around our home. So companies and corporations spend millions of dollars to build a relationship of barter exchange for monetary gain to a complete stranger, right? So it's like a CRM. We've got contact follow-ups. MIT studies. If you follow up with this person 17 times, you're going to get a yes, 7 no's to a yes, right? Like we do everything. But we do not know how to communicate to our families. We just assume that's something that's supposed to happen, realizing that even though we know our families, communication is still a challenge and it is something that you have to do. So when my daughter, I kind of written this book, I was talking a little bit about that. She was 6, right in the stage where they're drawing all over the place and there's paper everywhere. And she had been on stage with me and been a part of all this stuff since she was a baby. And so I said, she came down, she says, Dad, I want to start a business. So when I tell this story, we're on TV and most times she shares it. And you have to understand, like, it's like the thought process of when your daughter or son comes to you and says, I want to play basketball or I want to play football or, I want to be in dance. I want to be in ballet. And we're all over it, right? And that rate of return for them, that return on investment's minimal. Yeah, there's some core character foundations that are played there. Responsibility, leadership, hard work, all the basics that come with sports, I believe. But the return on investment, i.e. the exchange of the benefit, is not really that big, right? She can go in a dance and yeah, maybe she'll be a great dancer, but that success level is minimal and it's very linear, it's very hyper focused. So that's the only career she can do. So when she says she wants to start a business, I understood that money is not the important thing to teach her, but value. Once I teach her the value and what she can provide, sales, interpersonal skills, public speaking, the money just kind of comes with that. That's part of the exchange. Money is not the important thing. It's the value you can provide. And then that's just the exchange for that value. So when she said that, I was like, you know what? You got it. You come up with a name and the logo, we'll make it happen, right? And most people look at a 6-year-old and think that they could do that. 20 minutes later, she came up with a name, Big Guns Coffee. She had a little coffee cup with a little muscle on it, and which is our logo today. And I said, oh, why do you want to call it Big Guns Coffee? And she says, well, God, not everybody can be strong like you and run across America and do all this stuff, but maybe they can feel like it. And she's like, coffee does
Mm.
that, makes people strong. So Big Guns Coffee. So, and that's how it all started.
I am just so inspired and moved by that, and I'm sure you were when she suggested that as well. And that just really that's amazing, Shane. This is an inspiration for other entrepreneurs and other families out there.
Yeah, thank you. It's amazing watching her. We just literally yesterday sealed our deal with Walmart to launch in about 300 stores in North Carolina, South Carolina, and so I always share. Charlie's now 10, and she does all the pitches. So, like, if you followed us on TikTok at Big Guns Coffee, you'd actually see where she actually goes through. We just got back from Chicago, where she pitched 16 retailers back to back in a 10-minute kind of like speed dating platform. She picked the lead buyers at Walmart in a one-on-one room at 20 minutes, and I was just off to the side. She does all of that. So a large part of where we are today is because of what she's done. I'm the coffee hydroponic guy. I'm the plant person, but she is definitely the lead pitch, lead salesperson, and the face and image of it.
All right, well, next time we're going to have to get her on the podcast here to
Yeah,
give us the pitch.
absolutely. You guys, she'll do it too.
All right, we're going to set that up then.
All right, sounds good.
Awesome. Shane, congratulations and thank you for everything that you're doing.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you.